Hello and welcome to the newest episode of the Blue Collar Racing Podcast. We got a buddy of mine, Matt Santjer with Santjer Performance Development.
Hey, how's it going, Kyle? Appreciate you having me on the podcast.
No problem, buddy. Thanks for taking time out of your day to do it. So
Absolutely.
Tell us about yourself and your company and what got you started.
All right. So went to school and got my mechanical engineering degree, and was in the manufacturing industry for about 7 years or so. Before I finally kind of gave that up to focus full time on the business. I've always kind of been an autonomous person and wanted to focus on engineering for products that really interested me. And I've been a racer my entire life, so naturally that's kind of the direction the business has followed. Kind of focus on the engineering and manufacturing side of the engine and drivetrain components is the primary focus. Been doing a lot with the diesel BMW platform, and also with the diesel trucks in general, with the input shafts and so definitely been an interesting road since I think I started the business in 2018, so kind of came a long way.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard a lot of good stuff about all the BMW stuff you're doing, and I personally run one of your input shafts in my race truck, and I know tons of people that run them, and I mean everything that you've came out with and are doing, I've heard zero complaints about them.
Yeah. I mean the shafts have been doing awesome. I mean that was the first product that kind of got the business going. So they've been out for like five years now, just about. And obviously it's a 37 spline solid input for the 4748 RE Dodge transmissions, and to date haven't had a single one broken ever, which has been pretty awesome. I mean, there's been hundreds and hundreds of shafts out there and all the wildest applications. I don't know, everything from your big power street trucks to your Chris Patterson's 3,400 horsepower dually, and just and everything in between, all your your sled pullers and drag racers and the whole 9 yards. So it's been I've been thoroughly impressed, and it hadn't had a shaft failure ever. I mean that's pretty awesome in my mind. So been happy with it. So
Definitely. And where are you guys located at?
we are in Moyock, North Carolina. So not too far from kind of the Virginia Beach area. We're right at the Virginia and Carolina border. So.
All right. And then what all do you guys offer for if somebody has a truck or a BMW they want to get parts for, or do you do builds at your shop, or how's that go?
So in general, we try to focus more on the engineering and manufacturing side of things, and we'll take on some race car builds and stuff for mainly the BMW stuff. If somebody's buying triple turbo kit or trying to build a 670 index bracket racer or something, and it's kind of a full build, we will take on a few builds per year. But kind of I try to stay away from the typical service work and diagnostics and stuff. I do obviously help out a lot of customers remotely and stuff with diagnostic work, but try to can't do everything without more manpower. So try to focus on the, I don't know, on key things. But yeah, that's kind of been the business model at this point. We'll see what the future holds. If we want to try to expand into it, really like to get a set of hub dynos and do some more in-house testing. But we'll see how that, make some space. Always need more shop space.
Yeah, that's never ending. Now, do you guys do everything in the house as far as the manufacturing of your parts?
Everything we can. We do all your normal machining in house, milling and turning. Got all the CNC equipment and stuff here. Certain processes like heat treat and spline rolling for the shafts. We outsource a few very key suppliers that we work with that are trusted, that we've been working with for years. Because those are certain processes, mainly in the spline rolling and broaching, and that makes sense to outsource to guys, places that specialize in just those processes. They'd be able to do a better job, and we wouldn't really be able to justify bringing in the specific equipment for those processes. But all your typical machining for your general turning and milling processes, we do all that stuff in house. So.
All right, nothing wrong with that. I like seeing companies that do as much as they can in house and try not to just outsource everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to keep the quality control if you're not at the very least doing final assembly and everything, and leaving your facility going straight to the customer. I mean, I can't imagine, I don't know, trying to have products that left another facility that I didn't physically have my hands on going straight to a customer. I mean, that would be certainly difficult to keep the highest level of quality control at that point. So I mean, I'd like to make sure that everything's done a specific way, and everything's checked over and packaged well and assembled correctly, and every shaft is inspected for run out, and making sure everything's right. I don't know. I like having that peace of mind of kind of doing it in house. I mean, so.
Yeah, it definitely helps with the sleep at night when you get to put your hands on it before it goes to the customer.
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, whenever if a customer has to get in touch for any sort of troubleshooting or whatever, I'm always the one that I deal directly with the customers and stuff. So there's no talking to sales guys or various other departments or anything. So you kind of talk to the one engineering the products and doing all the manufacturing and stuff. So it's, I don't know. I think customers appreciate that. So at least that's the feedback I've gotten.
Yeah, definitely. Now, how many people work there, or is it just you?
At the moment, I'm the only full-time employee. I do work with have other guys that helped me over the years, and we'll do, I don't know, we'll come in at different times, different busy times of the year, and help out with different things. But as far as full-time, I don't know, it's kind of a more or less a one-man show. So.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yep, I like keep it small and small, high quality, the best that it can be. And if when the time comes that I'm forced to grow, just try to keep the growth under control and not try to, I don't know, grow super fast overnight. And I don't want to I'll never want to sacrifice quality or anything like that. It's always got to be the top priority.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of companies that have been around in the past that
Were
grow
awesome
super
in the
big,
beginning and then weren't.
all beginning, grew super fast, and now you barely hear of them or they're not even in business anymore because they grew bigger than what they
Yep.
could do, and quality went down,
Yep.
and just it leads to a bunch of problems. You have to do it slow.
Yep. Yeah, you can't. Seems like growing overnight is rarely a good thing. So for the more steady linear growth.
Yep. So you got the BMW. I've seen it at multiple events. Tell us about it. What got you into the BMW world? Because I remember meeting you back when you had your truck. What got you away from the trucks and into the BMWs?
Oh, so it was kind of a slow process, really. I mean, I got the BMW as a daily driver. I was never a BMW guy by any means, and that was the first BMW I'd ever owned. I know little nothing about the gas BMWs and stuff. It's really just been the diesels that I focused on. But what really kind of got my attention was that it was like a little miniature Cummins with an aluminum block, little inline six, 3 liter diesel, and very similar common rail fuel system. So it was very familiar to me coming from the common rail Cummins platform. And obviously it started as a daily driver, and then I slowly collected a few more cars over the years. And obviously I've kept pushing the original one. That's kind of been the one that's gone from daily driver to it's still daily drivable. There's nothing about it that's not daily drivable, but I mean, obviously I'd kind of focus on the racing with it. I've tried hard to keep it I do primarily drag racing with it, but it's by no means set up as a drag car. I mean, even suspension and stuff, I've done zero suspension work to it. I can bolt on a set of street tires. I can put on some track tires and go race autocross or road course stuff, which I've done. Go out to VIR and race out there. So I've been trying hard to not let the drag racing kind of take over. And I mean, I'm getting close to the point where I might consider doing some more drag specific setup for it. I've been racing 670 index for a couple of years now, and I've been pushing lately really hard to get it to be a 590 car. So been bumping the power up, and now I'm starting to I was pushing for a long time just to stay fuel only, pushing the triple turbo platform and really trying to make it just an awesome 670 fuel only car. Did that for a while. Was able to drive it to and from all the races and haul the tools and everything there, which was awesome. And it's still a completely full weight car. I mean, it's not gutted at all. It's full interior, radio, AC, factory seats, all that stuff. And no roll cage, which is awesome. I mean, for 670 index, all the trucks obviously have to have cages. The cars do not. If it's a production car that retains all the factory airbags and seat belts and is 2010 or newer, I believe. And I think there's a new NHRA rule for some of the even newer cars that can go faster. So basically, I can run 670 index legally with no cages or anything. That will be the downside of going to 590 is I would have to get a cage in it. But I'm kind of I definitely want to get it in the fives. I'm gonna try to get into the fives here. This Truck Wars coming up. See how that goes, and yeah, we'll see we'll see if that I don't know if I decide I want to put a cage in it and start racing 590 index at the ODSS events. So we'll see how it goes. I think it'll do it, no problem. It's just a matter of really whether I want to put a cage in it or not.
Yeah. So back to what you were saying about, getting faster. Where do you see the limit stopping? Like if you did, the cage and you set one up strictly for drag racing, how fast do you feel one could get?
I mean, being that it's still a full weight car, so it weighs like 3,800 pounds with me in it. I mean, you can pretty easily pull 400 or 500 pounds out of it without getting too crazy. And I mean, that would make a huge difference, even at the same power level. And I mean, I think I can get it I think 590 is extremely doable, and deep into the fives is not going to be a problem in the near future, particularly with any sort of weight reduction. So I mean, the cars for racing 670 index, you really need in a full weight car 600 to 700 horsepower, depending on the transmission. If you have so I've swapped over to an 8H P70 ZF transmission with a standalone controller from Turbo Lamic, and have a trans brake and everything. That's made a pretty huge improvement in just consistency for bracket racing and reliability. And if you can, I think with an 8-speed and around 600 horsepower, you can run 670 index pretty consistently. And you could either do that with triples, fuel only, or your more typical cost-effective hybrid, basically a modified low-pressure turbo, factory low-pressure turbo, and a small shot of nitrous. I've got plenty of customers running that setup, and that's been a very proven cost-effective recipe for a 670 car. And then 590 will obviously, I mean, we'll still got some figuring out to do. But it'll be certainly more expensive to build a 590 car. But 670 cars it's gonna be cheaper to build than a 670 truck by far. And then if you want to run 770, I mean, that's super easy. I mean, that's basically, your tune, intake, exhaust, basic bolt-on stuff, and you can easily run 770 index. I mean, even with the X5s, so that's the SUV version that's all-wheel drive and weighs around 5,000 pounds. I can run 770 index with that, and that you need around 500 horsepower to run 770 in the SUVs. So that's another platform with the same M57 motor. So yeah, they're pretty awesome. And I've started messing with the newer N57s as well. I've got a 2014 N57 X5, and that's had pretty good results with that. It's getting close to being a 770 contender. They come factory with an 8-speed transmission, which is nice, instead of the 6-speed that's in the older ones. So you have that advantage right off the get-go. So it's just they're a little more expensive to get into to begin with, but there's some pros and cons to them. I think the motors are maybe not quite as well. I don't think they're an awesome platform for big power like the older M57s. And that's if you're trying to make I don't know, 500 to 1,000 horsepower. The M57 is definitely the way to go. If you're fine with I don't know, 400 and 500 horsepower. The N57 which is the like 2014 and up, is another option. But they only, in the U.S. we only had the SUV version that came with that motor. The cars started coming with a 4-cylinder version, so that was a 2-liter 4-cylinder. So don't have as many options for the newer vehicles, but still, I guess better than no diesel vehicles in the in the later years. It's just limited.
Yeah. So you're planning on getting yours into 590. Do you ever see yourself, possibly seeing if it'll ever go into the fours, or do you believe one could get to the fours?
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely could. I mean, we certainly need weight reduction and suspension work to do it. But I mean, so I had it on a set of hub dynos recently, made 921 horsepower and 1,177 foot-pounds. And that was with a single stage of nitrous, single small stage of nitrous with our dual pumps, so it's a dual CP3 setup with our triple turbo configuration, and that was with 100% over injectors from S&S. And then your basic like intercooler upgrade and what else? Our valve springs, and then the most recent update was doing rods and pistons. So I've been I've got a prototype set of rods and pistons in the motor right now that I've been working on, and they've really taken us kind of the next level, I guess. Before we were periodically bending factory rods and cracking pistons, same stuff that I deal with in the truck world. But the new rod and piston setup, I think, is really what's going to allow us to make big power reliably, and that'll give us the possibility of getting the car into, I don't know, deep into the fives, and down the road, who knows, maybe into the fours. I think for that type of power, or for that type of to get that type of times, it would have to be making 1,000+ horsepower and weight reduction and suspension work, but certainly doable. Or maybe an all-wheel drive setup. So there's options, definitely options out there. Just gotta see how it goes. I think we'll see some big things from these little BMWs coming here soon. Try to get more of the truck guys into the platform. I mean, there's already been quite a few that are picking them up and driving them more often than the trucks. So I think it's a really cool platform.
Yeah, definitely. They're a lot lighter, they're smaller. You can still make them easier to daily drive and go have fun with.
Yeah, very, very versatile, very versatile car. So I mean, and they get 30, 35, 37 miles to the gallon on the highway. I mean, even in like so it's like a really awesome like daily driver setup would be like, you can have like a 500 horsepower daily driver that's got basically it's a modified factory low pressure turbo. So there's a bi-turbo configuration from the factory. Basically 2 turbos. One of them, both of them are coming off of the manifold, so they're not really in compound. So you have you have a turbine bypass flap in between the two that can either allow exhaust flow through the small turbo, or allow it to go directly to the large turbo. So it's kind of like you can keep the small turbo online below 3,000 RPM, and then switch over, and the small turbo is not a restriction at all. And then at that point, it's more or less like a single turbo on when you're just running the larger turbo, the larger atmospheric turbo at higher RPM. So you have all the benefits of a fast spooling setup, and without the downside of having a small turbo in play in your higher RPM, higher power range. So it's a really slick setup. I mean, that setup scaled up on a truck, I think would be phenomenal. It's kind of been on my mind as something to try to build at some point. I think that would be. I mean, right now I have a typical compound setup on my truck with a GT55R as the atmospheric charger and a 66 millimeter primary, and I mean it runs well. It makes awesome power, but it doesn't spool anywhere near as fast as the cars though. Even like the triple turbo stuff. I mean, because I still retain the two factory turbos with the triple configuration. So it still spools super fast and has awesome street manners and stuff. So it'd be pretty cool to scale that up on the truck platform.
Yeah, as you were explaining that, I was just thinking about that. I was like, that would be super cool on a truck to see that. It would definitely be interesting.
Yeah, I mean on the cars, I mean it's all vacuum actuated for the turbine bypass valve, and so there's also a compressor bypass valve. So there's a hot and cold side valve that you can shut off the small turbo entirely, take it out of the equation entirely. So it's not a restriction at all on the top end. So I mean, if you were to have a similar scaled up setup and be like you could have a big old GT55R like a single, but have a little tiny, I don't know, I'm trying to think scaling wise, maybe like a little S200 or something super tiny that take offline immediately. So you just have like super fast spool bottom end and then all the airflow you could ever need on the top end. So it'd be a pretty slick setup.
Yeah, definitely. I'd just be curious to see. Like, I know Truck Wars has the singles elite class. I know a few others have the single turbo classes. I wonder how that would get put into that.
Yeah, I'm sure it wouldn't be allowed in a single turbo class. I mean, even I don't know, like the 6.4 Power Strokes and stuff like that, they're not even, I don't even think they're allowed in the singles elite class. So, but I mean, all your other, I mean, you'd obviously be able to run anything else. So that's really the only class that would have any sort of stipulation to. I mean, I guess until maybe some of the Poland classes and stuff would obviously could be problematic, but for a daily driver type thing, I think that would be pretty awesome. Definitely spool much better than your typical compound turbo setups.
Yeah, definitely. So what got you into the transmission shafts and what kind of made you come up with it and kind of idea behind that?
Well, on my personal 06 Common Rail 5.9 that I've been racing with for 10 years or so, and I had broken, I want to say it was like almost 13 input shafts. It was a horrendous amount of input shafts, and finally got to the point where I just wasn't going to put the transmission back together until I had a better solution. I was tired of breaking everything available. I mean, I'd broken all the 27 spline stuff, the 45 spline shafts that were available. Obviously multiple stock size shafts before that, all your air emit shafts, and just nothing was holding up. I mean, it was a full weight street truck that was, it made good power. It was 1,400 horsepower. And I just wasn't going to put it back together again. I was kind of got fed up, and so I went down the road of trying to figure out a better solution, and came up with the solid input shaft, and spent a little over a year in development with it, and that ended up being the first like big product for the business, and it did really, really well. I mean, the big thing with that shaft was that it got away from having the ceiling ring grooves and cross drilled holes at the rear portion of the shaft near the hub. So you can make the other end of the shaft as big as you want, but you're still limited to having the cross drilled holes and ceiling ring grooves. And that's just an extremely high stress concentration region. And really, by making the rest of the shaft larger and not really doing anything about that section, you're increasing the stress at the area that it's failing. You have less shaft for it to deflect over, and you're increasing the stress concentration there. So basically, I kind of went back to the drawing board and figured out how to eliminate it entirely. Obviously, the 4R and 5R transmissions in the Fords run a solid input shaft with no ceiling ring grooves or cross drilled holes, and that was kind of what first sparked my ideas to how to make the 47 and 48 RA transmissions function the same. So kind of redevelop the fluid transfer between the converter and transmission, kind of change the path that the fluid takes to and from the transmission. It still flows through the same ports in the stator support casting in the transmission on the transmission side. It just, after leaving that, it just takes a different path to and from the converter. Basically, instead of fluid flow to the converter through the center of the shaft, it flows on the outside of the shaft between the shaft OD and the stator support tube ID, and then the fluid flow returns to the transmission on the OD of the stator support tube and the ID of the impeller hub. So it just kind of, the fluid transfer passages kind of just shifted outwards. But obviously you still retain lockup. It's not like you lose lockup or anything. That was one of the big questions early on, was, does it still retain lockup? It absolutely does. And it actually functions much better than a lot of the aftermarket shafts. They reduce the cross drill hole size. They reduce the center hole in the shaft, and that kind of restricts fluid flow to and from the converter. So you end up having kind of like a softer lockup and apply, and it actually ends up slipping as it's applying and releasing. So you get clutch glazing. And if you were to data log, you'd actually see, like, when lockup was commanded, it's not actually locking up right away. There's a pretty major delay with the solid shaft setup. All the guys that switched over that are data logging, they immediately would see that as soon as lockup's commanded, it applies, and we'd see substantially increased converter clutch life from that. And also, when guys are staging, if you don't have sufficient fluid flow and fluid volume to the converter to keep the apply piston fully unapplied, your clutches will drag, and you may not feel it, but that's why guys burn up converters so frequently staging at the races, when they're trying to get big single turbos lit and stuff. So they're standing on the converter, and slipping that clutch because it's not kept fully unapplied. So having fluid passages that are sized just like the OEM shaft ensures that there's sufficient fluid volume to keep that apply piston completely unapplied when it's supposed to be. So there's other benefits to it as well. Yeah, I've had really awesome results with it over the years, and tons of big power trucks from all sorts of applications. So it's not just your race trucks and stuff. I mean, there's nothing about it that makes it, I don't know, not street drivable, or it's, you can have daily drivers, that tow heavy and stuff, race trucks, sled pullers. It works really well in all the applications. So definitely not like a race only type application.
Amazing, actually, that something that's always had failures, and you've been able to make something that has zero failures.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, honestly, in the very beginning, like, if I had to put money on whether or not they would ever be a failure, I mean, I probably would have said by now that the likelihood of having some sort of failure and would be somewhat likely. But yeah, I mean, we've not had not one single shaft failure ever. Never had a broken shaft. And I mean, there's been some crazy applications. I mean, during the development, I had like built a torsional fatigue tester that I ran the shafts on. Obviously did tons of computer FEA analysis to begin with, but then built a functional fatigue tester, and I tested it to 4,000 foot-pounds. And I mean, Chris Patterson made over 4,000 foot-pounds and 3,400 horsepower. So I mean, it's seen more abuse than it was really initially designed for. So can't complain.
Oh, definitely not. Like I said, I run one. I've had zero complaints with it. I know a bunch of people that have them, and I want to see how long it goes. I mean, I would love to never see a failure, but if one does fail, it would be interesting to see at what point with your original design with it, at what point it does fail.
Yeah. I mean, I would certainly be interested to do some analysis on it and get a hold of a failed shaft at some point, but hopefully that never happens. I mean, as far as competition goes, I mean, there's some other alternatives out there to shafts now that weren't available early on. But I mean, it's a pretty minor, it's not a substantial cost difference, to be honest. And I mean, I don't know, everything we build is is made in the U.S. And I mean, it's kind of hard to compete with stuff that's made overseas. But I mean, I'm not going to outsource anything to be overseas and try to compare or compete price wise, pennies for pennies. I mean, that's just doesn't make sense, and not something I wouldn't feel comfortable giving up any sort of possible quality to save a few pennies. I mean, just I don't know, the guys that want something that's definitely not going to break, I mean, it's kind of the way to go.
Yeah, definitely. So what events are you planning on going to, and do you have any more events this year, or what are you planning on doing next year?
This year we've got Truck Wars coming up. I believe it's October 21st, I believe. So we'll definitely be there. I'm going to try our best to get the car in into the fives. Probably gonna run the Outlaw class they have. Maybe run Outlaw and 670. We'll see. And then after that, we'll be starting up ODSS next year. I think that's actually there might be a Rockingham event. Was it November, early November, I think. So we'll try to get out to Rockingham also.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, I can these couple questions to people that race and stuff. What's your favorite event to go to?
Favorite event? Oh, I mean, all the ODSS events are always awesome. And Truck Wars is super close to me. The guys that put it on are awesome. Known them for a long time. Chris Parker and Buddy Calloway, and they put on an awesome event here. I mean, as far as having a favorite, I don't know. It'd be a hard decision. Pros and cons to all of them. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that I have a specific favorite. But just any of the diesel events around here, they're always a good turnout, and very similar group of guys that are at all of them. So that's usually that's definitely one of the highlights of the event. Just getting to catch up with all the other enthusiasts in the industry, and yeah, always looking forward to them.
Yeah, that's my favorite part about every event I go to is you always seem to meet one new person, and then buddies that you haven't seen since the last event that you went to. It's always like a good chance to catch up with everybody.
Yep.
We get busy in our day-to-day lives when we're at home, and don't always get to talk to the guys that you see at every event. I mean, you talk to a few of them here and there, but you really get to catch up with everybody every time you go to events and see everybody and see what they've done to their schools.
Exactly. And when you're racing, it's kind of hard to spend much time talking to everybody, and so like even like this past UCC I went to, I flew out to that one instead of I didn't bring anything out there to race. Thought about bringing the car, but I just decided to fly out there, and it was nice not having the stress of racing, and just being able to spectate and talk to everybody, and that was nice. So definitely not a bad thing to just get out to the races periodically, and just even when you don't have car or truck ready to race, still get out there and watch the event and catch up with everybody. It's always a good time.
Yeah, that was me for the spring truck wars. My truck broke down right before it, and me and my buddies still went out to truck wars. Wife came with me. We all went out there, and it was nice to just hang out, actually watch some racing. Of course, I got pulled here, there, and everywhere because somebody's truck broke, and I was under the hood of a truck or helping somebody with figuring stuff out, suspension. Just kind of going on pits and just actually enjoying the day of it, and not just the stress of keeping my truck on the track.
Oh yeah, there's always some stress associated with racing.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most stressful, relaxing hobbies you'll ever have.
I mean, yeah, I don't know about the whole relaxing side of it, but the stressful side, I certainly get that.
Yeah.
No, it definitely has its. What was that?
The stress before the event, getting in.
Oh yeah, always a stressful couple of days getting ready. And
what companies have helped you out along the way with all of your stuff?
Oh, let's see. So Phil at Diesel Performance Converters has been enormous help supporting the solid shafts over the years. He's always built awesome converters to go along with them. I can't thank him enough. And the guys over at S&S Diesel have been awesome as well. They've been a huge part of the BMW platform progression over the years. They've been building all the injectors for us. They've helped out tremendously with obviously the fuel side of things, and was able to use their combustion analyzer for months. Ran that on my car, had piezo cylinder pressure sensors and all the glow plug ports, and collected tons and tons of data. That was awesome. That certainly was a big help, and pushing the tuning further with the M57 platform, having real-time cylinder pressure data, and that was awesome. So yeah, I mean, those two guys they've been awesome. Can't really thank them enough.
Social media, website, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so you can they can go to santjerperformance.com, and you can search Santjer Performance Development on Facebook, and we've also got an Instagram as well. So you kind of keep track of the progress with the BMW stuff, with the truck stuff, everything. Try to post stuff somewhat frequently. Sometimes I lack a little bit in getting the content out there, but I try to get out there as much as I can. So
understand that. And
yeah,
then
always busy. Yeah, man, it was awesome being on here. Certainly appreciate your time, and it was good talking to you. And look forward to seeing you out at Truck Wars here shortly.